Hello, my name is Nassia Ioannidou and I represent Greek Association of Women Entrepreneurs. Our today's webinar is about entrepreneurial culture and it's a part of Efeb Network's project. Discussion about cultural features, attitudes and entrepreneurship is nothing new. More than 100 years ago, Max Weber studied the relationship between religious ethical motivations and entrepreneurship. He put forward the argument that Protestant labor ethics had made a substantial condition to the development of modern capitalism because it had changed the attitudes towards labor. Even if religious motivation in working life nowadays may be less relevant, the debate on cultural features, enterprise-related attitudes, and entrepreneurship has remained quite a topical issue. First, however, the concept of culture should be clarified and defined. Secondly, the influence of cultural features on business foundation activities will be addressed and the results of empirical studies presented. The concept of culture is very complex and is used with various meanings. Under a pragmatic definition, one can say that any group of human beings whose thinking and acting differs from that of other groups has a culture. Hofstede, likewise, emphasizes the relationship between culture and group affiliation. He clearly defines culture as collective programming of the mind which distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from another. According to Fukuyama, culture encompasses the values, norms, interpretations, and models of behavior that characterize societies or other social groups. The different definitions clearly shows culture to be always a collective phenomenon, at least in part with humans living in the same social environment or belonging to the same group. Accordingly, any human being belongs to different social groups and carries different layers of mental programming. In addition to a national level, which is commonly understood under the term culture, there is also a regional level, an ethical, religious, and gender level. Culture is learned conscientiously and unconsciously. It should therefore be distinguished from human nature on one hand and from the individual personality on the other. Cultural features are passed on in socialization processes. That is why culture cannot be changed in the short term. It has a long-term character. Against this background, it becomes evident at this point that political programs can only have a conditioned and long-term impact on cultural features. In recent years, research has been increasingly devoted to the subject of attitudes and their role in the process of business foundation. Unlike cultural features and personality traits, attitudes toward business foundation have been proved less stable. They are influenced by environmental factors and may alter as time passes. The decision to become self-employed or to start one's own business is influenced by a number of factors: professional background, the level of education, current employment, personality traits, and the social and regional environments have an impact on the startup decision. Individual factors alone cannot explain why certain individuals become self-employed and others prefer paid employment. Albert Shapiro already referred to this phenomenon 20 years ago when he characterized the business foundation process as overdetermined. Culture can influence economic activity in variable ways. Firstly, culture is known for influencing attitudes towards work and consumption. Secondly, culture has an influence on the organization of economic activity and the shaping progress of institutions' effectiveness. Besides, culture has an impact on social networks and confidence building within social groups. The primary interest of the present study is what kind of influence culture may have on business startup activities. Such a relationship may be given in different ways. Mostly, analyses on the relationship between culture and startup activities or entrepreneurship are conducted by considering attitudes towards entrepreneurship or business foundation. One proceeds from the fact that cultural features influence attitudes towards startups and vice versa. Such a relationship between culture, attitudes, and startup activities may exist on individual as well as on regional and group levels. There is a direct relationship on the individual level when, on account of cultural features, may persons exhibit a positive attitude towards business foundation and due to such an attitude decide to become self-employed or to start a business. In such a case, there is a direct relationship between culture and startup activities because of the potential self-employed person's positive mindset. This argument concurs with those of employed persons' positive mindset. This argumentation concurs with those of Schumpeter, McKellen, and Kirchner, who likewise describe a direct link between attitudes and business foundation activity. Further, a relationship between culture and foundation activity on the societal level may exist. Egione argues that the values and norms predominant in the social environment of an individual may have an influence on his or her prosperity to start a business. In line with this argument, a culture averse to business foundation may suppress startup activities. This would, for instance, be the case when entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship have a bad image within a society or a region, and the individual therefore does not consider himself an entrepreneur. Nevertheless, the influence can be opposite, positive. Some communities foster an entrepreneurial culture as well. Silicon Valley, part of the San Francisco Bay Area, is famous as a launching pad for startup technology companies. Families may promote entrepreneurship as well. Parents who encourage their children to take risks and teach them the value of self-employment may raise kids who become future entrepreneurs. In all cases, there is a relationship between culture and business foundation activity, not only on the individual level, but also on the level of social group, region, or society. To conclude, an entrepreneurial culture can be described as an environment when someone is motivated to innovate, create, and take risks. In a business, an entrepreneurial culture means that employees are encouraged to brainstorm new ideas or products. When work time is dedicated to these activities, it is called entrepreneurship. Culture is only a construct, yet its impact is undeniable. To leverage it, we must first understand it. Some characteristics of entrepreneurial culture are shared values, growth through excellence and innovation, collective responsibility for experimentation, job execution is incomplete without improvement. About skills, competence upgraded, learning to learn and unlearn, job rotation for wider perspectives, skills for environmental scanning, in-depth analysis, risk evaluation, communication and collaboration. Staff, optimal and multi-skilled, ownership and belonging, inclusion of innovation for performance evaluation, growth and reward. Another characteristic is style, participative and inclusive, tolerance towards ambiguity, openness to new ideas, support of risk-taking. Strategy, long-term focus, innovative problem-solving and performance improvement, risk-taking in essence of business. Structure: limited horizontal layers and vertical differentiation. Cross-functional task teams. Dedicated team for nurturing creativity. And the last characteristic is our systems. Simple, flexible, and involving systems. Result-oriented rather than process-oriented approach. Quick approval mechanism for innovative ideas. In a survey of 70 leading entrepreneurs for 48 countries around the world, the respondents were asked to rank the most important factor in the process that structures their entrepreneurial culture. As a result, identification of opportunities, differentiation, creative teams, stimulating partners, and role models were considered as the most important factors for a vivid entrepreneurial culture. Researchers have begun to stress out the idea that the identification of opportunities can lead to a competitive advantage. The individual entrepreneur's ability to recognize opportunities and a highly beneficial aptitude. Most opportunities do not appear out of the blue, but result from the entrepreneur's alertness to possibilities and knowledge of how to exploit them, and from fine-tuning the mechanisms needed to identify potential opportunities at an early stage. The types of exploitable opportunities and the mechanism delineate the characters of the entrepreneurial culture. For example, exploiting financial opportunities would generally develop into a finance-oriented entrepreneurial culture. The exploitation of opportunities to introduce new products or develop new and different products and services will be discussed in the section dealing with the marketing relating aspects of the entrepreneurial culture, etc. Visions also play a major role in shaping the structure and characters of the entrepreneurial culture. However, since a vision usually reflects dreams, hopes, or desires, they are often quite undefined and do not necessarily match the presently accessible or potentially available resources. The vision of a venture should be clearly defined by developing a mission statement. The purpose of such a document is to put a spotlight on how the business should be established and run in order to realize a profit or a goal. Mission statements set practical goals, and these underlie the business plan and the practical action plan. The business culture of the firm is divided into the vision, while the behavior comes from the entrepreneurial culture. Any organization's entrepreneurial orientation or culture can be understood by examining how it is correlated to five dimensions: autonomy, innovativeness, proactiveness, risk-taking, and aggressive competitiveness. Autonomy refers to whether an individual or team of individuals within an organization has enough of freedom to develop an entrepreneurial idea and then organize its implementation. In an organization that offers high autonomy, people are offered the independence required to bring a new idea to fruition free of corporate bureaucracy's restraints. When individuals and teams are unharmed by corporate traditions and norms, they are able to more effectively investigate and successfully implement new ideas that have beneficial impact on the whole organization or company. In some cases, an autonomous unit eventually becomes completely distinct from the partner company. For instance, when Motorola spin up its successful semiconductor business to create Freescale. Innovativeness refers to persuasion of creativity and experimentation. Some innovations are based on existing skills to create the improvements, while more radical innovations require brand new skills, creative thinking and readiness to go outside of the box. In any case, the main goal of innovativeness is to develop new products, services, and processes. Those organizations and companies that are innovative and open up to new ideas tend to reap off more benefits of their stronger performance than those that are not. However, the question of how firms generate the types of new ideas that meet customers' complex needs is still open. Such worldwide famous innovator as Google has found a new possible answer. For example, Google's two most popular features of its Gmail, thread sorting and unlimited email archiving were first suggested by an engineer who was fed up with his own email. Google allows its employees to spend a portion of their work time on projects of their own for the purpose of creating new innovations for the company. This illustrates how different entrepreneurial orientation dimensions can reinforce one another. Competitive aggressiveness is the tendency to intensely and directly challenge competitors rather than trying to avoid them. Aggressive moves can include price cutting and increasing spending on marketing, quality, and production capacity. For example, Ben & Jerry's marketing campaigns in the mid-80s attempted to limit distribution of Ben & Jerry's products. In response, Ben & Jerry's launched their What's the Duck Boy Afraid Of advertising campaign to challenge competitors' actions. Although aggressive moves help Ben & Jerry's, too much aggressiveness can undermine an organization's success. A small firm that attacks larger rivals, for instance, may find itself on the losing end of a price war. Besides, a reputation for competitiveness aggressiveness can damage a firm's chances of being invited to join alliances that might help to develop new organization strengths and decrease the weakness. Executives must be aware of risk referred to competitive actions that destroy opportunities for future collaboration. Proactiveness is the tendency to anticipate and act on future needs rather than reacting to the events after they already took place. A proactive organization or a company is one that follows an opportunity-seeking approach. Such companies and organizations act before the market demands has been already shifted. They are frequently either the first to enter new markets or fast followers that improved on the initial effort of first movers. Proactive executives have built a profitable niche in the world that it is technologically, environmentally, and politically turbulent. Risk-taking refers to the tendency to engage in bold rather than cautious actions. According to Simon, Houghton, and Aquino, despite the belief that entrepreneurs is that they are chronic risk-takers, entrepreneurs do not perceive their actions as risky, and most take actions only after using planning and forecasting to reduce uncertainty. The preceding section identified five distinct dimensions that were generated a priori based on an interpretation of the academic literature of entrepreneurial culture. Cultural subtypes related to entrepreneurial culture and insights from the practitioner literature on entrepreneurial culture. These five dimensions are thought to capture the necessary and sufficient characteristics and attributes that constitute an entrepreneurial culture. An entrepreneurial culture was defined as a partner of values, assumptions, and practices shared within an organization that is certainly concerned with opportunities, where opportunity is the creation of new value to society in part or in whole. Its dimension and its definition can be shown in the previous table. This proposed framework represents a comprehensive view of entrepreneurial culture that theoretically describes the various phases that describe an organization culture. Upon receiving previous definition and description of entrepreneurial culture, characteristics and attributes such as innovation, risk-taking, learning creativity, and collaboration were prominent. However, when recognized with other literature in the entrepreneurship field, it appeared that the concepts important to entrepreneurial firms and their organization cultures were left out. In particular, conceptual dimensions that will help explain not just how opportunities might be recognized and discovered or created, but also acted on, did not seem to be accounted for. This proposed five-dimension framework aims to comprehensively describe entrepreneurial culture, organizational culture, and cultural subtype. It aims to accurately describe entrepreneurial culture as an organizational culture centrally concerned with opportunities. Revising the questions raised by some experts, the manner in which the facets of entrepreneurial culture combine to give the construct meaning should be addressed. To retail an addictive relationship is appropriate when the effect of each facet on the focal construct is independent of the effects of other facets. For example, an expert, which is called Mackenzie, used the example of the construct job performance when facets such as task performance, organization citizenship behavior, and workplace behavior are hypothesized to independently contribute to its job performance. That is, an employee can increase job performance by increasing task performance or decreasing workplace deviance. Alternatively, a multi-capable relationship may be appropriate where the effect of each facet on the focal construct is thought to interact to produce the focal construct. Mackenzie also provides the example of source creability, which is the intersection of exercise and worthiness. If a source is trustworthy but has no expertise, he or she is not credible, and if a source has expertise but it's not trustworthy, then he or she is not credible either. As a result, credibility is conceptually defined as the product of trustworthiness and expertise. The exact literature on the entrepreneurial culture appears ambitious on this specific issue. For example, the Ireland description of an effective entrepreneurial culture lists a number of characteristics that are linked with conceptual and implies the union or addition of these characteristics. Miguzi and Passaro, two experts working on entrepreneurial culture, definition speaks of a composite of values, skills, experience, and behaviors, where a composite implies the additive compositeness of two or more things. Examining the various descriptions of entrepreneurial cultures suggests similar lists of combined characteristics with and, for example, a firm is more entrepreneurial when its organizational cultures encourage a broad array of new ideas, experimentation, and creativity. As another example, organizations that desire to be highly entrepreneurial must develop an entrepreneurial culture that includes such factors as the ability to learn and to focus on markets. In contrast, there are no examples of the characteristics and attributes of entrepreneurial culture being described as an intersection or product of these various aspects. On the other hand, insights gained from decades of developing research and instructive here. In the causative view of the construct is viewed as the intersection of the innovativeness, risk-taking, and proactive dimensions. They are expected to positively covary in order for an entrepreneurship or a company, for an entrepreneur or a company to be manifested. This is based on the foundational thinking of Miller, who argued that in the absence of covariation among the three dimensions, that is, if any of the elements were missing entirely, then the results would be considered less than entrepreneurial. In other words, if an organization has actually not innovative or risk averse, could it really be considered to have an entrepreneurial orientation? With this in mind, entrepreneurial culture is a vision as a multiply active interaction among the facets. This is the focal construct of entrepreneurial culture represent the intersection of organizational enthusiasm, stakeholder alignment, and so on. It should be noticed that these facets are necessarily and jointly sufficient for the meaning of the construct. This implies that each facet must have some non-zero level of all attributes to possess an entrepreneurial culture. For instance, an organization which refuses to change and go after opportunities will not be certainly focused on opportunities, so it would be difficult to argue that this organization had an entrepreneurial culture. Similarly, an organization or a company that discards the interest of its stakeholders would likely struggle to generate new opportunities, which will also not be indicative of an entrepreneurial culture, and so on. This interpretation of the focal construct implies that an entrepreneurial culture is identifiable from the intersection of these five facets. These facets are described by them values, assumptions, and practices are what constitute an entrepreneurial culture. The conditions required for establishing an entrepreneurial culture are identification and promotion of role models. Women entrepreneurs, for example, who lost their jobs in the textile factor and creating Charming Sub, a rural woman entrepreneur partnership. They came on television to explain how being laid off from an aligned textile industry was for them a blessing. It allowed them to unveil their entrepreneurial potential and leadership abilities. Role of media. For instance, in the promotion of entrepreneurship as a business model. Until recently, the local TV ran a weekly documentary, Portrait Del, in which a local women entrepreneur was portrayed as to her new place in society as an economic and social agent. Similarly, a few newspapers receive a page regularly to promote entrepreneurial initiatives. The educational system. Entrepreneurship modules in the curriculum at different levels. Entrepreneurship education is now beginning to be anchored in tertiary education curricula. We have now moved from the old paradigms where entrepreneurship was to be taught only in business faculties. The present Super Gem is a living example of the new paradigm when the subject is available to all undergraduates from all fields. An IT student, and fashion and design student, and all the others, in fact, need to know the basic business and entrepreneurship skills that are required to start a business or to act entrepreneurially, to lead and innovate in their employer organizations. Period of incubation. Entrepreneurship development programs spread over a period of time. Initiatives like la Semaine de l'Entrepreneuriat are defined for general awareness, but the enthusiasm soon dies away after the caravan has left. What is truly beneficial for cultural change is a planned process that uses all the avenues mentioned in the section over a longer period with set obstacles and performance targets. In Finland, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial culture was developed as a result of a planned entrepreneurship decade, that is, 10 years of cultural change. This can take the form of entrepreneurship education starting at primary or secondary education level, targeting rural women with a microcredit scheme and so on. Participation of leaders, political and religious leaders to promote entrepreneurship as a solution to current economic problems. As mentioned earlier, under entrepreneurship, a strong charismatic leadership is required to transform a community. To change the mentality from qualifying to get a government job to taking charge of oneself and by being self-employed required psychological push that can be facilitated by people who can influence the community. The first people to come out of our mind are the political, social, and religiously leaders. Creating an entrepreneurial culture within an organization drives many benefits. However, every coin has two sides, and this case is not an exception. Establishment of a powerful entrepreneurial culture is not an easy task. The process must include some risky challenges. First of all, the people might fail to capture the important role of entrepreneurship. Such an attitude is called ignorance and it could be overcome through awareness raising activities, for instance. Secondly, in the communities who got used to being assisted and led by the company's management, the lack of entrepreneurship can exist simply due to the employees' laziness. Why would they start thinking and acting outside of the box if the bow is so comfortable and predictable? Also, the possibility of fear in case of entrepreneurship is a common reason why companies procrastinate with introduction of entrepreneurial orientation. Not many people are so open to trying new approaches out, especially in the world of business, where any wrong step can have a dramatic effect on the whole enterprise. Moreover, religious and cultural constraints should be taken into consideration. Some communities or societies might perceive business and profit making as being against their beliefs and values. In addition, the already established entrepreneurial culture requires a common effort to maintain it in a way that avoiders must risk as employee conflict and perceived inequity and jealousy. According to South and West, in these cases, the employees should have a friendly environment to open up about their concerns and express their feelings. Some experts claim that another issue might be influencing reward systems and problems associated with balancing new initiatives with already existing responsibilities. That is why the management should develop effective inside the company monitoring system, stay up to date, and disseminate among each other new practices regarding the topic and innovative problem solving solutions. All the mentioned difficulties are not easy to overcome. However, a right mindset and the willingness to make changes will definitely help to start the shift towards progress in creating a successful entrepreneurial culture. In order to have a conclusion, I would like to just say that organizational cultures influence new and existing members, motivates and cautions them, shapes and comforts their thinking and behaviors, create structure within the organization and companies, and build routines and traditions that are held with emotion. As a result, an entrepreneurial culture has been argued to be a powerful force within organizations and companies to enhance the innovative abilities and provide permission to fail and try again. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to also check our other webinars, other our Erasmus Plus KA2 project called European Region Entrepreneurship Connection Efeb Network. Thank you.